Chapter 541, For Earth King. Very soon, He Lulan and the rest started to feel a pressure as heavy as a mountain. Not good, the enemy has gone crazy, we won't be able to hold on for long. Black Banner troops, come over to reinforce us quick. Pei Yan Fei, Zhong Fei Yu, Tang Miao Ming, you guys also come over to protect Wolf King. We cannot continue to defend passively like this, we need to take the initiative to attack. Otherwise, the residual force of the battle will still endanger Wolf King. My tribe was absolutely not resigned to losing. If they lost, they would be completely finished. They began to stake their lives, the heavy rewards alluring them to brave dangers. The situation quickly escaped out of He Lulan's control and the battlefield soon changed into attacking and defending Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan's safety and danger directly concerned the result of this battle. The enemy rank 4 Gu masters and rank 5 Gu masters all rushed over, creating a huge chaotic scene. This was a majestic spectacle that was rarely seen in the former imperial court contests. In the battle rings, rank 4 Gu masters were already reduced to a supporting role. Even rank 5 experts could not act freely and were in a risky situation. He Lulan, Yi Lui Sang and others had still been paying some attention to Wolf King at first. But soon, they were finding it difficult to protect themselves, surrounding them were flames, ice and snow, sound waves and all sorts of attacks that flew chaotically among the battle rings. The enemy did not remain in a fixed place, fighting anyone they met. There were times they even attacked their own people. The number 1 assassin Wu Ming stood at a distance, helplessly looking at the giant chaotic battle ring. He was an assassin, an expert at getting close while hiding before striking the fatal attack. But right now, the battleground had become so chaotic with all Gu masters attacking madly, all kinds of investigative Gu worms scanning around, and Gu masters killing anybody they came across. The situation was already out of control, the offense too overwhelming, and some rank 4 Gu masters had already become hysterical to protect themselves. Wu Ming was doubtful, if he entered stealthily, he might be discovered within a few breaths of time. It might even be his own people who might attack him in the heat of the moment. Even if I don't make a move, Wolf King will find it hard to keep his life in such a situation. Wu Ming smiled coldly and kept on watching the show. Soon, his eyes brightened and saw a rank 4 Gu master of his side moving towards Wolf King from the side. Cheng Hu. When he saw the person clearly, Wu Ming almost shouted in excitement. Someone had struck Cheng Hu from behind and sent him flying towards Fang Yuan. Previously, Fang Yuan had Bian Si Xian guarding him from the side. But just moments ago, Bian Si Xian had taken the initiative to draw away the encroaching Fei Xingcheng. She was not a defensive Gu master and also did not have any intention to sacrifice her life for Fang Yuan, thus she felt that was the most sensible choice. Which scoundrel sneak attacked me? Cheng Hu fell on the ground and immediately stood up, furiously roaring before turning around and charging towards the direction he came from. This? Wu Ming did not know what to say at this scene. However, Cheng Hu had only walked 5-6 steps when suddenly he seemed to have been struck by a body immobilization spell as he stopped on the spot. He furiously turned around and rigidly stared at Fang Yuan who was within his reach. After few breaths of being dazed, he finally came back to his senses. The guys who sneak attacked me, I really love you. Ha ha ha. Cheng Hu's pores opened up in excitement and looked at Fang Yuan like he was looking at 5 million battle merits and endless fame and fortune. Grr. He pounced forward, his limbs instantly transformed into a gorgeous tiger the moment he landed. Transformation Path Killer Move. Slant-Eye Tiger roared, a reeking wind pounced towards Fang Yuan. Damn it! Hide quickly. Bian Si Xian glanced back and involuntarily screamed. Success! Wu Ming felt his blood pumping and his body shivering with excitement. The tiger opened its bloody mouth, leaped to the air and pounced down. The huge shadow shrouded over Fang Yuan's face. The tiger's sharp teeth was almost closing at his head. I had not thought such a heaven-shaking contribution will fall to my hands, huh? The tiger's eyes suddenly flashed with a shocked look. A pair of large hands grabbed the tiger's neck, immobilizing it. Humph! Chenghu snorted inwardly. His many years of battle experience and insight allowed him to quickly slash with his two sharp claws. Thud! A muffled sound echoed. The next moment, the two tiger claws were separately grabbed by two metallic hands. Where did these hands come from? Chenghu gazed with bewilderment and saw Fang Yuan's cold gaze and tranquil as ice face, and two bronze arms that had grown from his sides since some unknown time ago. The two bronze hands firmly grabbed Chenghu's tiger claws. Humph! Chenghu snorted and immediately used his tail as well. The tail lashed through the air, forming a fierce whip shadow that was agile and tricky as it smashed towards Fang Yuan's head. Slam! A clear sound echoed. There was not the slightest of injuries on Fang Yuan's head, but instead it was the tiger tail that had turned numb from the pain and lost its control. Chenghu had a killer move. Fang Yuan similarly possessed a killer move. Killer move, Forearm Earth King. There were no less than 14 Gu worms used for this killer move, including rank 5 Amplify Effect Gu. In such a state, Fang Yuan's defense had increased by over 4 times. His strength reaching 800 Jun. Moreover, when he was touching the ground, his strength would keep on increasing without end. Have you played enough? Fang Yuan gave a cold smile, looking calmly at Chenghu, his gaze carrying a ridiculing and cold intent. An intense coldness rose from Chenghu's heart before quickly spreading over his whole body. Fear. Even if Chenghu was usually carefree and took his bravery as an honor, right now as he looked at Fang Yuan's dark and cold eyes, he felt fear. The intense fear caused him to erupt with strength. The tiger moved its throat, preparing a sound wave attack. However, at this moment, Fang Yuan gave a soft sigh. Such a boring trick, sigh, it is better for you to die. His voice was tranquil and light, as if he was talking of an insignificant thing. Hitch. The next moment, the bronze hands exerted strength and pulled. The gorgeous tiger was ripped into 2 halves, fresh blood splattered and internal organs fell down to the ground. 2 irregular tiger parts fell down to the ground and transformed back to 2 halves of a human. And the tiger head turned back to Chenghu's head, his eyes were wide open in fear, completely revealing the fear of death. Fang Yuan grabbed Chenghu's skull and slowly raised his head, his gaze traversing through everyone and landed on Yang Piying. The hair all over Yang Piying's body stood on their end, an intense sense of danger was rising in his heart. Fang Yuan flapped his eagle wings and flew to the sky. Yang Piying's pupils shrunk, immediately mobilizing the Thunder Eagle group to protect him. Fang Yuan smiled in disdain. Do you think you can block me with just these beasts with rank 4 battle strength? Hee hee. Bam bam bam. He directly charged straight ahead, the Thunder Eagles in his way were forcefully smashed into pieces. By the time the Gu masters in the chaotic battlefield reacted, Fang Yuan had already charged through the Thunder Eagle group like a hot knife cutting through butter and reached Yang Piying. You! Yang Piying's face lost all blood as he looked at Fang Yuan with extreme fear. Fang Yuan lifted him by his head, his whole body not even able to resist the slightest bit. Fang Yuan lightly clenched his hand. Crack! Fang Yuan burst Eagle King Yang Piying's head as easily as bursting a watermelon. Blood and brain matter splattered, and the Eagle group instantly crumbled apart. The Eagle group flew away back to the sunny sky. The enormous commotion attracted countless people. What? Wolf King personally killed Eagle King? A lot of people shouted incredulously at this sight. Now, it is your turn. Fang Yuan did not stop, his cold gaze landing on Ma Zun. They were separated by 10,000 steps of distance and he was protected by the majestic horse group, but Ma Zun still felt a terror as if a calamity was descending upon him. Block him. Kill Wolf King. Wu Yi and Shi Shui flew together and pincer attacked Fang Yuan. A bunch of trash wants to block me. Fang Yuan snorted in disdain, he flapped his two wings and easily shook away Shi Shui, directly charging towards Wu Yi. This. Wu Yi had never expected Fang Yuan to be so violent. He overestimated his own defense while also underestimating Fang Yuan's fierce offensive. The defensive light barrier only held for half a breath of time before collapsing apart. Wu Yi immediately sensed danger and with his master-level flying skill, he was able to make a dodging movement which others simply could not do. If it were others, they might only be able to let him escape, but Fang Yuan was similarly a flying master. Bang! A dull sound echoed, half of Wu Ye's body was smashed into paste with bones fracturing into pieces and internal organs of half his body bursting apart. His eyes were wide open as he fell down from the sky. A generation's flying master, a demonic path expert had perished. Fang Yuan moved on towards Ma Zun without even glancing at Wu Yi. Roar! A dragon roar echoed like a thunder, and an enormous dragon blocked Fang Yuan's way. This giant dragon had golden horn, 3 claws and dragon eyes which were burning like lanterns, revealing the flames of revenge. Chang Shan Yin. You dared to kill my younger brother, you shall pay the most bitter price for this. This person was a rank 5 expert of transformation path, Cheng Hu's big brother, Cheng Long. Noisy earthworm. Fang Yuan snorted and increased his speed, leaving behind an afterimage in the air as he fiercely smashed into the giant dragon. Boom! The explosive sound of the collision was deafening. The sound wave spread to all directions, resounding through the sky and earth. Hearts trembled as countless gazes fixed at the distant, looking at Fang Yuan whose body had inflated by 2 times and was covered in a bronze luster, his 4 arms thicker than a grown man's thighs. He stood proudly in the air, grabbing a broken dragon horn. While the 3-clawed golden giant dragon fell down to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. It fiercely smashed into the ground, creating a giant pit with dragon blood and dragon scales splattering all around. What? Ma Xiangfeng's pupils rapidly shrunk as he blurted out involuntarily, not daring to believe the reality, even Cheng Long could not take one move from him. This killer move. He Lu Lan absent-mindedly looked at Fang Yuan, seeing the reflection of Lu tribe's 3 brothers 3 heads 6 arms killer move. Ma Zun, I, Wolf King, will take your life. Fang Yuan lightly said, his voice traveling across the battlefield, his calm tone was like he was once again speaking of insignificant matter. But to everyone else, his words had a feeling of being unrivaled. Uncle Ma Zun, leave quickly. I will block him. Ma tribe's young tribe leader Ma Yingjia shouted from Ma Zun's side. The other Gu master guards also started persuading, Wolf King is very fierce, we cannot face him head-on. Lord and young tribe leader, please leave, we will hold him back. Chapter 542, Dual Cultivating 2 Paths. People all around Ma Zun kept on persuading strongly. Ma Zun's expression was ashen as he resolutely refused, no, my Ma tribe only has warriors who will fight to death, not cowards who will run away. I am a symbol of Ma tribe, it will be a heavy impact to our army's morale if I run away. I cannot leave, we have yet to lose, I still have my Pegasus group. With a shift of his mind, the Pegasus flew into the air like clouds. These grand beasts had snow-white fur, their mane fluttered in the wind as they unfolded their pure white wings. These Pegasus were Ma tribe's pride. A grand feeling emerged in Ma tribesmen's hearts as they looked at these Pegasus, the feelings of fear quickly calmed down. Right, we still have Pegasus. Ah! Ma Yingjia was speaking, when suddenly he exclaimed in shock and terror. Fang Yuan was shooting towards them like a meteor, fiercely crashing through the Pegasus group without any intent to dodge. The Pegasus, which had rank 4 battle strength, were smashed through, their blood spurting high. The horse group neighed in panic, their pure white feathers helplessly drifted in the air as their corpse fell down to the ground. Fang Yuan moved straight through Pegasus group and reached above Ma Zun and the group with none able to block him. Ma Zun was stunned, the Gu masters beside opened their mouth wide as they looked at Fang Yuan, their heart filled with extreme shock, helplessness and fear. Fang Yuan's ghostly figure deeply imprinted itself in the depths of their heart, never to be forgotten. No, I have not lost yet. Ma Zun freaked out and was about to use his killer move when he was blocked by Ma Yingjie. Uncle, let me do it. Once you use this killer move, your cultivation will fall. Ma tribe can lose me, but it can never lose you. Ma Yingjie shouted, his gaze filled with determination. Yingjie. Ma Zun's body shook, he looked at this junior whom he appreciated and was most hopeful about, and felt his will to fight to the death. The origin of this chapter's debut can be traced to /n/o/vel/b/in. Ma Zun did not want his nephew to sacrifice for him. But just like Ma Yingjie said, Ma tribe could lose Ma Yingjie, but it needed him, Ma Zun, to command horse group. The eagle group had crumbled apart now and the rat group could not be counted on. If they lose the horse group as well, Ma tribe's defeat will be certain. Also, my death is not certain. Uncle, leave quickly. Ma Yingjie turned solemn, mobilizing his primeval essence into several Gu worms. Killer move, Dragon Horse Spirit. This was a killer move that was specially prepared for them by Snowy Mountain's demonic path Gu Immortal Shui Song Zi. Neigh neigh. Many horses beside Ma Yingjie raised their front legs and gave desperate and crazy neighs. Large amount of blood seeped out of their body, they fell down one after another as they lost their life. But at the same time, diverse and gorgeous horse souls resembling rainbows pierced out of the corpses. Mutated horse souls. Fang Yuan's pupils slightly shrunk. Normal souls were simply impossible to be detected by ordinary people. But these horse souls had a pair of coral-like dragon horns on their head and were also of every size, as if they were alive, and they also shone with all kinds of colors, only the blind would not be able to see them. Dragon horses floated up and charged towards Fang Yuan in a very fast speed. Fang Yuan flew away, pulling apart some distance while also making probing attacks. These horse souls were troublesome because they were souls. Ordinary physical attacks had no effect on them. At the same time, their self-destruction had the power equal to the soul explosion of the previous shark fin wolf. Fang Yuan's killer move was strong, but it was not a soul path killer move. If 3 horse souls self-destructed at the same time, he would not be able to endure it. After all, his soul cultivation was still a 1,000-man soul. But why would I face you head-on? Fang Yuan scoffed and slowly landed on the ground. He was not simply a pure strength path Gu master, he still had enslavement path methods. Next moment, wolf smoke surged and healed the wolves beside him. Wolf howl resounded, raising the wolves' battle strength by several times. The wolves then charged towards Ma Yingjie and Ma Zun like hungry sharks. Damn it! Ma Yingjie immediately experienced Fang Yuan's insidiousness and unscrupulousness. He had sacrificed large numbers of horses beside him to form into mutated horse souls for the killer move, Dragon Horse Spirit. But Fang Yuan did not face his horse souls, instead sending his wolf group to death. The wolves used their lives to wear down the horse soul's strength, and the mutated horse souls started becoming dimmer as they defended against the wolf group's fierce attacks, some dispersed and some self-destructed. Large numbers of wolves died in exchange for a sharp reduction of the horse souls. Fang Yuan was displaying the essence of the enslavement path to the extreme. Enslavement path Gu masters used cannon fodder to exhaust the enemy's precious strength. For example, consuming their primeval essence, and right now, it was to perish along with the horse souls. Ma Yingjie could do nothing to Fang Yuan. Mutated horse souls were strong, but after slaughtering so many wolves in such a short period of time, they were now powerless to be of any threat to Fang Yuan. Uncle, leave. You are our Ma tribe's hope, leave quickly. Ma Yingjie shouted, persuading Ma Zun to leave again. Ma Zun's cheeks streamed with tears, his heart filled with pain, hatred, anger and hesitation. He gritted his teeth to the point of almost breaking them, but in the end, under the urging of his rationality, he slowly moved his body and led a group of horses, leaving Ma Yingjie and retreating towards Ma tribe camp. Fang Yuan immediately sensed Ma Zun's movement. Ma Zun was an enslavement path master, 100 times more significant than Ma Yingjie. Fang Yuan immediately flapped his wings and flew to the sky. He gave up on Ma Yingjie and began to chase Ma Zun. Wolf King, don't leave. Ma Yingjie hurriedly mobilized horse souls to fly into the sky to intercept Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan coldly smiled in disdain and made an exquisite turn in the air, throwing all the horse souls behind him. He was a flying master while these mutated horse souls were no more than Ma Yingjie's puppets. Looking at Fang Yuan rushing towards them with killing intent, the Gu master guards beside Ma Zun immediately became fearful. With no choice, Ma Zun also used the killer move, Dragon Horse Spirit. Under his control, mutated horse souls formed into a tight defense line. Their might was much more than what Ma Yingjie showed. Even if Fang Yuan had Flying Master achievement, it would be difficult for him to break through. Roar! A dragon roar resonated at this moment. An enormous shadow shrouded over Fang Yuan. The three-clawed, golden-horned giant dragon once again charged at Fang Yuan. Qinglong had been defeated in one move by Fang Yuan and had fallen down to the ground miserably. He had barely crawled out of the hole when he was attacked by several enemies, and after spending all his strength to thwart and beat away these obstacles, he chased after Fang Yuan in rage, to take revenge. You actually came to send yourself to death. Fang Yuan coldly smiled, not in the least moved as he looked at the dragon claws that were rapidly approaching him with an invincible might. The eagle wings on his back flapped and he easily brushed past the dragon claws. Relying on his exquisite flying skill, he made the giant dragon go circles around him. Not good, I am not Wolf King's match in the air. Qinglong soon realized his disadvantage, but it was already late. Fang Yuan grabbed this gap to fly to the dragon head. His two bronze arms ruthlessly pounded on the two eyes of the giant dragon like a battle spear or a sharp sword. The dragon eyes burst and blood splashed in all directions. The giant dragon immediately went mad, roaring miserably due to the intense pain. Fang Yuan was splashed all over with scarlet blood, but he did not stop. He gave a sinister smile and continued piercing deep into the eyes with his two hands, directly attacking the brain membrane. While his other two hands smashed at the dragon head like a heavy hammer. Bang bang bang. Huge sounds echoed out again and again as Fang Yuan continued to hammer at the dragon head like pounding on a war drum. The giant dragon started falling down, it struggled with mad fervor and its long tail twisted into a braid. Stones and mud flew, and the dragon tail lashed out, sending both humans and beasts flying. Fang Yuan did not stop his attack, he continued to pound for 20 to 30 times and was finally satisfied when the dragon head was thoroughly smashed into pieces. White brain matter and blood spurted upon his whole body. He took a deep breath, the intense odor of blood instead making him feel satisfied. Especially when he looked silently at this giant dragon corpse that he had conquered. Man, no matter which world they live in, all lives to conquer, conquer the enemy, conquer themselves. Fang Yuan sighed with emotion. Although the dragon had already died, the dragon corpse had not transformed back. One could see how profound Qinglong's achievement in transformation path was. His head was quite tough, but he was no more than an impulsive fool. Fang Yuan lightly commented before looking towards Ma Zun again. He even killed Qinglong. Is this still Wolf King? Wasn't he an enslavement path master? The scene of Fang Yuan stepping on the corpse shocked many. Most of them simply did not dare to believe their own eyes. How could Wolf King change from an enslavement path master into such a fierce warrior that rampaged in the battlefield? Meanwhile, the wolf group howled and charged waves after waves without any pause, showing Fang Yuan's exquisite beast-controlling skill. Ma Zun's face was pale, his primeval essence was gradually exhausted as he kept on maintaining the killer move, Dragon Horse Spirit. The mutated horse souls had formed a tight defensive battle formation, the wolf group throwing their lives as they charged forward waves after waves. Fang Yuan remained unmoved at these sacrifices, only sneering inwardly. Now, let me show you the true power of dual cultivation in enslavement and strength path. With a shift of his mind, the wolf group immediately changed their offensive pattern, dividing into several groups and breaking forward like sharp cones. The mutated soul's battle formation was unavoidably pulled apart. As the defensive line became thinly spread, Fang Yuan took the initiative to launch an assault. Ma Zun felt a chill in his heart and promptly maneuvered the mutated horse souls to intercept Fang Yuan, but this caused the defensive line to turn chaotic. Fang Yuan laughed and changed the direction of his assault while making the wolf group charge ahead by 300 steps. Ma Zun blocked left and right, soon being unable to hold off the attacks. If he guarded against Fang Yuan's assault, the wolf group would be free to charge forward. If he defended against the wolf group, he would not be able to guard against Fang Yuan. After several rounds, Fang Yuan saw a gap and fiercely charged towards Ma Zun. The first strike broke Ma Zun's defensive barrier, the second punch seriously injured Ma Zun and the third punch killed this famous enslavement path master. Ma Zun died. The horse group crumbled apart and Ma tribe's army's morale lowered to the abyss. If I had not seen it personally, I would never have believed this. Horse King actually died by enslavement path master Wolf King's beheading the leader tactic. Wolf King concealed himself too deeply, he actually cultivated both enslavement and strength path. He simply does not need to fear beheading the leader tactics. How can we deal with such an enslavement path master? Chapter 543, Victory has been decided. The terrifying strength Fang Yuan displayed inflicted heavy pressure on everyone in Ma tribe army. Despair was quickly spreading in their heart. Now, we can only rely on Rat King, only the rat group can contend against the wolf group. Ma Xiangfeng's face was ashen, Ma Zun's death made him feel like he had fallen into an ice cave. But he was Ma tribe leader, and under this desperation, he looked towards Jiang Baoye's direction. However, the next moment, the only hope left in Ma Xiangfeng's eyes was also obliterated. Rat King had actually fled. Heavens, this Wolf King is a monster. Eagle King, Horse King, Qinglong, Chenghu and Wu Yi were all killed by him. Will I be able to survive if I don't run away now? Blood flowed out of all 7 facial orifices of Jiang Baoye as he ran away. He could not do anything about this, he had sworn the poison vow when he joined Ma tribe army. Now that he was deserting in the battle, he naturally suffered the backlash of the poison vow. But Jiang Baoye wanted to retreat even if he had to risk the backlash. Fang Yuan's terrifying performance had already completely obliterated all will to battle in his heart. Rat King, return right now. Ma Xiangfeng shouted. But Jiang Baoye ignored him and ran madly. The blood from his 7 facial orifices was dyeing the path, showing his determination to run. His fleeing attracted the people around him and soon, a large number of Ma tribe Gu masters began to retreat with large number of tribes gathering their forces as they retreated from the battlefield. One really shouldn't rely on outsiders. Ma Xiangfeng spurted out a large mouthful of blood before he blacked out and fainted. Ma tribe army was utterly crushed, the situation was set. Despite having the snowman elite troops, they could not turn around the situation. Gu master experts also started to retreat one after another. I almost had to break my seal and use my true martial physique to fight. Luckily. In a battle ring, He Lulan, who had been attacked from all around, was gasping, his body full of injuries and his primeval essence heavily depleted, but the ominous glint in his eyes was becoming colder and sharper. Under his order, He tribe army began a ruthless hunt. The more they killed, the more battle merits they would obtain. Even a fool understood this. Fame and fortune incited He tribe army to be like brutal famished wolves. At first, the elite troops were covering Ma tribe's retreat, but soon He tribe's elite troops rushed to them and pinned them down. Ma tribe army had thoroughly collapsed and countless people were escaping to all directions. Fang Yuan did not move, instead calling the wolf group to protect him. Heavy internal bleeding, soul has been weakened to 500-man soul. Fang Yuan inspected his body, swallowing the blood in his mouth as waves after waves of dizziness attacked him. His 2 bronze arms quietly disappeared. The repercussions of 4-arm Earth King killer move was much more serious than what he had expected. The several experiments before only scratched the surface. Now that I used it to its extreme, even going beyond the theorized time limit, a problem has occurred. Sure enough, genuine knowledge comes from practice. Killer move was an exquisite coordination between Gu worms. But a killer move was not perfected by just planning it. Only by putting it into practice and revising it continuously, could the killer move be perfected. And this process to perfect it could last a very long time, lasting generations and even over 10 generations of continuous deductions and adjustments. 4-arm Earth King was a result of Fang Yuan using his 500 years of experience along with a moment of inspiration. It was made in a hurry and was still in experimental phase. Fang Yuan was soon able to understand what caused such heavy repercussions. It is the rank 5 Earth Overlord Gu. This killer move was originally based on ground fight, the longer one is touching the ground, the lighter the repercussions. But I was flying almost all the time in this battle. Thus, this problem was exposed. It seems 4-arm Earth King killer move has a lot of shortcomings. From this battle, I can see flying is much more convenient than charging Crash Gu, and possesses much higher threat to enemies. Since I have master level attainment in flying, I should make full use of this superiority. He was not willing to give up flying, so the 4-arm Earth King killer move had to be greatly altered. Fang Yuan sat on the aged Night Wolf Emperor, quietly pondering while looking at the wanton slaughtering by He tribe army. Damn it, still vigilant, not giving me even a little chance. Assassin Wu Ming was hiding in a distance while observing Fang Yuan. He had been thinking of taking advantage of Wolf King's negligence after the battles, to sneak attack him. If he succeeded and killed Wolf King, Ma tribe would still have a chance to regroup and make a comeback. But Fang Yuan did not give him any opportunity, almost as if he saw through his plan. Wu Ming waited for a while more, but because of He tribe experts moving about more frequently nearby, he could not endure any more and quietly retreated. Ma tribe was fleeing in defeat, and while they were fleeing, Ma tribe leader Ma Shangfeng woke up. He was still not resigned, and after they fled to the defense line, he tried to hold on by relying on the defense line. But Tai Bai Yunxing's mountain as before Gu wrecked his plan. He tribe army broke through the defense line, Pan Ping used his soul blade Gu and luckily managed to get Ma Shangfeng's head in the chaotic battle. With Ma tribe leader's death, Ma tribesmen no longer had the will to battle. Tao tribe, Yang tribe and Qi Lian tribe surrendered one after another. The surrendering process unavoidably attracted most of He tribe's attention. Move faster, faster, faster. Zhao Lianyun was urging from inside the carriage. Fei Kai was taking the coachman position and used all his strength to lash at the horse, the carriage's two wheels moved at a rapid speed. Fei Kai was Mine Jie's head servant, and being in charge of Ma tribe's young tribe leader's everyday life, he naturally had to accompany Mine Jie to the battle. Zhao Lianyun was homeless and so could only follow behind him. Ma tribe was defeated, these two and other mortals also fled for their lives. However, just relying on the horsepower, the carriage's speed simply could not surpass a Gu master. While they escaped, they were thrown far behind by Gu masters. But because Fei Kai and Zhao Lianyun were mortals, the army chasing after Ma tribe army let them go. The battle merits in killing mortals were next to nothing. Of course, if they encountered Gu masters in a bad mood or those who liked to kill or wolves who did not care if they were mortals, just one or two casual moves from either of these could send them to their grave. However, Fei Kai and Zhao Lianyun's luck were really good. Not only did they not encounter such situation, they were actually able to smoothly escape out of the battlefield under countless Gu masters' eyes. The two put in all their efforts in escaping. The old horse pulling the carriage foamed in exhaustion and finally fell on the grassland. The carriage overturned soon after and broke apart. Fei Kai and Zhao Lianyun broke out of the broken carriage in a miserable state. Although they were injured, it was not serious because of the soft grassland. Now where should we go? Fei Kai was indecisive. They were in a vast land without any soldiers or Gu masters chasing them. Zhao Lianyun panted heavily without replying, she was also feeling flustered and helpless. Wolf King Chang Shan Yin, there is actually such a terrifying monster in this world. Damn it, if I had known you were this fierce, why would I persuade father to travel so far to side with my tribe? As she thought of Fang Yuan's terrifying figure rampaging in the midst of innumerable troops, Zhao Lianyun's body and mind trembled. Remembering her father who had died in the battlefield, their current homeless situation and the ruthlessness of fate, Zhao Lianyun began to weep in grief. Xiao Yun, don't cry, don't worry, I am still here. Fei Kai immediately comforted her. Zhao Lianyun buried her head in her knees and cried even louder. Fei Kai panicked as he comforted and apologizes repeatedly, cutting out a very clumsy figure. Zhao Lianyun cried for a while, then suddenly raised her head, what's the use of your apology? I am really miserable, how could I come to such a world? Now our situation is desperate with nothing to eat or even drink. At night, the bloody odor on the battlefield will attract groups after groups of beasts to forage. Sooner or later, we will starve to death, die of thirst or even freeze to death. Then what should we do? Fei Kai looked at Zhao Lianyun with an expression that was seeking help. Zhao Lianyun rolled her eyes and furiously shouted, you are really trash. You are older than me, can't you think of something? You want me to think of everything, do you think I am Dong Fang Yuliang? Fei Kai lowered his head after being scolded, only daring to look at his feet. Suddenly, he raised his head with bright eyes, I have thought of a good way. Ah! What way? Zhao Lianyun raised her brows in amazement, this fool had actually thought of a way. I feel that as long as we have a horse, we can escape far away from the battlefield. With no odor of blood, we will be able to avoid the beasts. Zhao Lianyun fiercely kicked Fei Kai, do you think I don't know? You fool, you big idiot. What good method is this? I also want a horse, where will you get me one? Fei Kai jumped in pain from Zhao Lianyun's kick. Suddenly, he pointed ahead and shouted, look, there is a horse. Zhao Lianyun turned around to look and was stupefied, blurting out, the fuck, there really is a horse. But she quickly reacted, there are no lack of horses in northern plains, but what we lack is the method to capture and tame it. Fei Kai, do you have any method? Fei Kai exclaimed, his hand still pointing ahead as he shouted, look, there is a person on the horse. Zhao Lianyun concentrated, there really was a person. As the horse neared the two, Zhao Lianyun's eyes suddenly opened wide because of the identity of the injured person on the horse's back, Ma Yingjie. Congratulations brother, congratulations. He tribe has won this battle, even if Ma tribe gets support from Gu immortals, they cannot reverse the situation. He Bai, who had been observing the battle all along, saw He tribe was already beginning to clear up the battlefield through investigative Gu, and impatiently congratulated He Cheng who was beside him. He Cheng lightly smiled, congratulations to you too. He Lu Lan, this kid did not betray our expectations. Ah, right, the demonic path Gu immortal who supported Ma tribe has been discovered, it is Xue Song Zi of Snowy Mountain's 6th peak. He Bai's expression immediately turned heavy, so it was him. If not for him meddling and fighting with me over wooden chicken Gu, the immortal Gu would not have escaped the bindings, and I would have already been in possession of wooden chicken Gu. He Ching comforted him with a smile, brother, no need to worry, it will be the same thing if we can obtain wooden chicken Gu with the help of 88 True Yang building. This is called, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. Once you obtain wooden chicken Gu, you will become an expert among Gu immortals immediately. I don't deserve such praise. He Bai immediately bowed at He Cheng and sincerely said, if not for elder brother's generous help, how could I have such financial ability like Xue Song Zi? Elder brother is really wise and far-sighted, investing so much immortal essence stones, it was an amazing decision. As expected, stocking up the wolf groups before sending them out for support all at once truly caught Xue Song Zi unprepared. This time, even if Xue Song Zi wants to continue sending help, there is no one to receive it. Ha ha ha. He Ching laughed brightly before sighing, without investment, how could there be profits? He paused a moment and continued, also, we were fortunate that other famous super tribes did not really make their move in this imperial court contest. There was also the information from Fairy Tan Baiya which allowed us to know of the secret relationship between Ma tribe and Snowy Mountain. Another point, this Wolf King Chang Shan Yin is truly a spectacular junior, his performance was outstanding, the one with the most radiance in this contest such that his brilliance surpasses this generation's Gu masters in Northern Plains. He Bai also nodded, having the same feeling, I have already investigated Chang Shan Yin in detail, he is a person of Chang tribe and was very famous, even us Gu immortals knew of him. Later, he mysteriously disappeared for over 10 years, he clearly had a fortuitous encounter. Now, he cultivates both enslavement and strength path, I saw the killer move he used just before, its repercussions are not small but it is indeed somewhat interesting. Fang Yuan could conceal his injuries from the surrounding people, but he could not conceal it from Gu immortals. He Ching was silent for a while before speaking, this is a Gu immortal seed, I plan to take him into He tribe. After he enters Imperial Court Blessed Land, we will properly observe him. If he is willing to join us and offer his loyalty, he might be able to become our He tribe's external supreme elder in the future. He Bai smiled, the difficulty of ascending to Gu immortal realm is unspeakable, elder brother truly thinks highly of him. In my opinion, Tai Bai Yun Sheng is also quite good, we can also ask him to join He tribe. But he is a little old. He Ching nodded. In these Gu immortals' eyes, only Chang Shan Yin and Tai Bai Yun Sheng piqued their interest and gained their attention among the entire He tribe alliance army. Chapter 544, Entrapping a Gu Immortal. When Ma Yingjie finally woke up, his first sight was Fei Kai's joyous smiling face. Fei Kai shouted, young tribe leader, you are finally awake. The simple and honest voice warmed Ma Yingjie's heart. He struggled to sit upright, but the intense pain caused him to grimace and froth started to bubble from his mouth, he was barely able to ask, where is this place? Fei Kai scratched his head, and said in shame, I also don't know where this is, but we should have escaped the battlefield. Battlefield? Ma Yingjie suddenly started and immediately asked, the battle, what happened? We lost, Lord Young Tribe Leader. Many people escaped and even more people surrendered. Fei Kai answered. Ma Yingjia's face turned pale white and his body shook, almost fainting down, but luckily Fei Kai was supporting his back. Zhao Lianyun stood at the side, looking at this formerly radiant Ma tribe young tribe leader who had now fallen into such a miserable state. It left a bad taste in her mouth. Sigh, this Ma Yingjia is young and promising, it is a pity he ran into Wolf King Chang Shanyin. It was not that you didn't try hard enough, but that the enemy was too much of a monster. Ma Yingjia closed his eyes, 2 streams of tears quietly falling down. After a while, he opened his reddened eyes and looked at Fei Kai and Zhao Lianyun, asking in a hoarse voice, "Did you guys save me?" Fei Kai and Zhao Lianyun nodded. "Young tribe leader, what do we do now?" Fei Kai asked. Ma Yingjia said with a gloomy expression, "We will return. This battle is our Ma tribe's defeat, but we still have some tribesmen remaining behind in Warm Pond Valley." Back then, before Heroes Assembly, Ma tribe schemed and brought about internal disorder in Fei tribe, before swallowing Fei tribe and occupying Warm Pond Valley. Ma tribe's higher-ups, to be prepared for the unexpected, left behind the old, weak, sick and crippled behind at Warm Pond Valley. If Ma tribe won, they would take these people back. But if Ma tribe lost, these people would be the seeds to continue the tribe's bloodline. Return to Warm Pond Valley? But we don't have water and also don't have any rations. To travel such a long distance. Zhao Lianyun's brows furrowed into a knot. "Heh, little girl, as long as I am here, there will be sufficient water and food. You guys don't need to worry." Ma Yingjia replied. The 3 started their journey, coming across many Ma tribesmen who had fled. Ma Yingjia took all of them in. "Lord Young Tribe Leader, I had not thought that I, Ma Yuliang, would still live to see you." When Ma Yuliang saw Ma Yingjia, he immediately said this in a sobbing voice. He was Ma tribe's rank 3 elder and was lying on a stretcher now. He had lost an arm and his right leg was fractured, his injuries were severe. When Ma Yingjia saw Ma Yuliang, tears involuntarily welled up in his eyes. "Elder Ma Yuliang, it really is good to see you." Although he had taken in many tribesmen along the way, most of them were mortals, while Ma Yuliang might be heavily injured and also crippled, but he was still a Gu master. Ma tribe had been utterly defeated in this battle. Before the battle, they had been a large tribe whose foundations were deep enough to charge to super tribe level. But after the battle, Ma tribe was completely reduced to a small tribe, falling down from the pinnacle of their power. To the current Ma tribe, every Gu master was a very precious strength and hope of the tribe. Lord Young Tribe Leader, Old Tribe Leader died in the battlefield. Ma Yuliang cried bitterly as he told this grievous news to Ma Yingjia. Ma Yingjia's body shook intensely, and despite having already made mental preparations, his heart was still filled with endless sadness and sorrow after hearing this news. He gritted his teeth, his whole body seemingly having turned into an iron statue. After a while of silence, he slowly wiped away his tears and spoke, "From today onwards, I am Ma tribe leader. Elder Ma Yuliang, you need to pull yourself together. Our Ma tribe might have lost, but we are not exterminated." Back then, Ancestor Giant Sun set the rule that Huang Jin family's bloodline could not be exterminated. Ma tribe has already paid a disastrous price for the battle, now even He tribe cannot eradicate us. We will return to Warm Pond Valley and climb up from this loss. I believe our Ma tribe's radiance won't disperse like this. Ma Yuliang dazedly looked at the young tribe leader in front of him, and in his blurred vision, he seemed to be looking at Ma Shangfeng and Ma Zun's silhouettes. He stopped sobbing as hope rose up in his heart again. He then answered with a very deep voice, "Lord Tribe Leader, I also believe so. Winner takes all." While Ma Yingjia was miserably fleeing, it was a scene of celebratory feasts in the many tents of He tribe's alliance army with plentiful food and people crowding around the warm bonfire. "We have won, we were victorious." Ma tribe's ambition was too big, they actually wanted to become a super tribe. This ambition was the cause of their destruction. Congratulations to Lord He Lu Lan for becoming the Lord of Imperial Court. Esteemed Lord Wolf King, please allow me to propose a toast to you. The main tent was also a scene of festivity. Besides the fine wine and food, there were also beautiful and passionate Northern Plains women dancing gracefully to their heart's content. The ones present in the main tent were the higher-ups of He Tribe's alliance army and were all experts. The cultivations of these people were at least rank 4, one could say they were the most radiant heroes of this generation of Northern Plains. He Lu Lan was sitting on the main seat, and to the first seat on his left was Fong Yuan. Because of Tai Bai Yun Xing's arrival as well as successive joining of several rank 5 tribe elders, Fong Yuan's position had been pushed to the back. But after the third battle with Ma tribe, Fong Yuan revealed his rank 5 peak stage cultivation and with his strength alone, battled the enemy's 3 enslavement masters, and beheaded Qing Long, Wu Yi and other famous experts. One could say Fong Yuan was at least 70% of the reason He tribe could win against Ma tribe decisively. Everyone in He tribe was shocked at Wolf King's terrifying battle strength, and that very night, they readjusted the seat rankings in the main tent. No one opposed this. Experts proposed toasts to Fong Yuan one after another. Fong Yuan did not refuse anyone, but only took a sip every time. This was completely not a demeanor of a grand Northern Plains warrior, but right now, this instead formed an arrogant and aloof aura on Fong Yuan. The main tent was filled with a joyful atmosphere. The Gu master who proposed the toast just before was Soul Blade General Pan Ping. He used his Soul Blade Gu and luckily managed to take Ma tribe leader Ma Shangfeng's head in the battle. Thus, his position was only inferior to Fong Yuan in the battle merit board now, being ranked at second. Seeing Fong Yuan taking a sip in response to his toast, Pan Ping gratefully stepped to the side. Northern Plains natives admire warriors. A terrifying performance like Fong Yuan's was extremely rare even when considering all the imperial court contests. Flying Master and Enslavement Path Master, 2 master-level halos shone on his body. His Enslavement Path and Strength Path dual cultivation would give an extreme headache to all his enemies. Seeing Pan Ping becoming satisfied and overwhelmed, and retreating in deference, the surrounding gazes showed respect, worship or fear. Fong Yuan calmly placed down the wine cup and sighed inwardly, unknowingly, I have already reached this stage. Riding on the great wave known as the Imperial Court Contest, Fong Yuan's individual battle strength rapidly inflated. Now, he was already at the summit of the mortal world. He had reached the peak of the mortals. Advancing further would be the realm of immortals. In the battle before, he slaughtered famed experts, rampaging all around with no one being able to obstruct him. Very few rank 5 peak stage Gu masters could display such performance. He Lu Lan's light was completely seized by Fong Yuan. Despite there being great flaws in cultivating both enslavement and strength path, despite 4-arm Earth King killer move being newly created and not yet perfected, they were already enough as a cornerstone to allow Fong Yuan to stand proud in the mortal world. In 3 Kings Blessed Land, Fong Yuan used the Blessed Land's power to kill rank 4 and rank 5 Gu master experts. And now, he was able to do it with his own strength. Even if Tai clan's previous clan leader Tai Mu Bai resurrected, Fong Yuan had the confidence of killing him. In a short period of time, Fong Yuan's battle strength had truly increased at a sharply flying speed. This accomplishment that others would find it almost impossible to achieve their whole life, was established on 500 years of his former life's experience, who immortal blessed land, painstaking efforts and strategies as a base. But it is still not enough, far from enough. What can being the peak of the mortal world be considered as? As long as one is not a Gu immortal, they will simply be chess pieces. Not mentioning the goal of eternal life, just looking at my current goal, I have yet to save Dang Hun Mountain. Fong Yuan's gaze turned solemn as the flames of ambition burned in his heart. He glanced at Tai Bai Yunsheng who was at the side. To save Dang Hun Mountain, he required Tai Bai Yunsheng's immortal Gu landscape as before. This was his most important target for this trip to Northern Plains. Even 88 True Yang building was secondary. In his plan, if Dang Hun Mountain could not be saved, then 88 True Yang building's inheritance could only barely fill his losses. However, it was a very troublesome thing to take away others' Gu worms. A Gu worm's survival could be decided on simply a thought from its master. For example, Fang Yuan only needed a thought and even his immortal Gu, Spring-Autumn Cicada, would easily self-destruct. Precisely because of this, when Gu masters battled to death, they would often get next to nothing in terms of Gu worms from the corpse. And Tai Bai Yunsheng's situation was even more troublesome. Immortal Gu landscape as before had yet to be born. It was an immortal Gu created by Tai Bai Yunsheng after he became a Gu immortal, and by using river as before and mountain as before as the main materials. Hence, there were two courses of actions Fang Yuan could take. First was to capture Tai Bai Yunsheng and use soul path Gu worms to soul search and plunder the recipe of landscape as before from his mind, then refine it by himself. This plan was too risky. First of all, Fang Yuan might not be able to capture Tai Bai Yunsheng alive. Capturing alive and killing were two completely different concepts. Especially when Tai Bai Yunsheng was very powerful and was a time path Gu master, the failure of the plan would have huge consequences. Secondly, even if Fang Yuan was able to capture Tai Bai Yunsheng alive, does it mean he could get the river as before and mountain as before Gu? In case Tai Bai Yunsheng made these two Gu self-destruct, all of Fang Yuan's efforts would go to waste. Finally, it was still unknown if the current Tai Bai Yunsheng had the Gu recipe for landscape as before in his mind. The possibility of a mortal being able to come up with an immortal Gu recipe was extremely small. Especially when Tai Bai Yunsheng was not a refinement path master. According to the vague rumors in Fang Yuan's previous life, when Tai Bai Yunsheng became a Gu immortal, heaven and earth reacted, Dao marks attracted each other and his inspiration exploded, making the two rank 5 Gu spontaneously merge together to form rank 6 immortal Gu landscape as before. If it really was so, then the Gu recipe for landscape as before simply did not exist and its refinement process could not be duplicated. The first course of action could not be adopted, then what about the second? In truth, it was not any better than the first. After Tai Bai Yunsheng entered Imperial Court Blessed Land, he would advance to Gu Immortal Realm. The second plan was to wait for him to become a Gu Immortal and possess the Immortal Gu, then deal with him. The meaning of this was that Fang Yuan, as immortal, would be entrapping a Gu Immortal. Chapter 545, Ma Hongyun. How big was the possibility of a mortal successfully plotting against a Gu Immortal? Fang Yuan might be a rank 5 peak stage Gu master, but it would be almost impossible for him as well to cross the boundaries of immortal and mortal. Fang Yuan was a Gu immortal in his past life, there might be no mortal that had as deep of an understanding of this as him. Fortunately, Fang Yuan's plan was not just himself as a mortal going against a Gu immortal. He would borrow the strength of 88 True Yang building, the bright guidance from his previous life's rich experience and also the precious information from Langya Land's spirit, all these allowed his plan to have a higher chance of success. With this, he had a 20% chance of seizing immortal Gu landscape as before. 20% probability was already the highest among the three ways to save Dang Hun Mountain. Only an immortal Gu could contend against immortal Gu Gruel Mud. Based on his wide vision and experience from his 500 years of experience, Fang Yuan knew of only 3 immortal Gu that could save Dang Hun Mountain. First was the rank 6 Earth Path Turn Rock Gu. This Gu was with Western Desert's rank 6 Gu Immortal Sun Siyu. Second was similarly an Earth Path rank 6 Immortal Gu rebuilding Mount Dongshan, which was in Eastern Sea's High-Shire Blessed Land. Third was Time Path rank 6 Immortal Gu landscape as before. This Gu had not yet been created and was not a naturally formed Gu. Its master Tai Bai Yun Sheng was only a rank 5 Gu master currently. To seize Turn Rock Gu, Fang Yuan would have to deal with Gu Immortal Sun Siyu, who had been a Gu Immortal for over a dozen years. And the situation would be even more bad if he wanted to scheme against rebuilding Mount Dongshan. Fang Yuan would be placing himself under the radar of Gu Immortals, and would he be able to exchange for the immortal Gu as a mortal? This was nothing more than a kid carrying gold and strolling around the black market. Thus, the third plan of Immortal Gu landscape as before had the lowest risk and the highest probability of success. Even if Tai Bai Yun Sheng would advance into a Gu Immortal, he would only be a greenhorn and would not be familiar with the qualitative change of strength. Compared to the veteran Sun Siyu and that group of Gu Immortals in the High Sure Blessed Land, this opponent was much more easy to deal with. Northern Plains, December. The blizzard was gradually becoming bigger and appeared more frequently. Even if there was no blizzard, the pure white snow had covered the whole northern plains, and even the blistering hot sunlight became powerless. The time of the 10-year blizzard was already approaching closer. Tian Chuan, Warm Pond Valley. Tribe leader, this is the Spirit Spring Sea. Ma Yuliang worriedly pointed at the dried spirit spring and introduced it to Ma Yingjie. Ma Yingjie's brows furrowed deeply. This Spirit Spring Sea was one of the only 3 remaining spirit springs of Warm Pond Valley. Now that it was dried up, only Spirit Springs A and B were left to support Ma tribe. This was disastrous news to Ma tribe. The spirit springs in northern plains were different from the spirit springs in other regions. Northern springs had little spring water and narrow spring opening, so they burst out fiercely and had poor foundation, so they lasted the shortest time. Eastern springs were plentiful in numbers, southern springs gurgled, northern springs were intense and western springs were pure. A mid-sized clan could last for over 10 years in southern border, using one spirit spring. As long as they did not use up the spirit spring excessively, they could continue to use the thin and continuous flow of the spirit spring. But it was different in northern plains. Spirit springs formed quickly in northern plains and quickly finished as well. Add in the intense warfares in northern plains, a mid-sized tribe would require at least 3 or 4 spirit springs to sustain themselves. Ma Yingjie became Ma tribe's new tribe leader after he returned to the tribe. Ma tribe had lost at their attempt to charge into super tribe level and was now reduced to a small tribe, causing the large Warm Pond Valley to appear spacious and empty. Ma tribe had rations and water sources, moreover had made ample preparations. But a spirit spring was a commodity that was an essential and important resource to a Gu master's cultivation. Once the blizzard arrives, places like Warm Pond Valley would become the final place of refuge. Not only beast groups, other Gu masters would also come to stay. As the owner of the place, Ma tribe not only had to resist against the blizzard but had to negotiate with these people as well. The primeval stones from the spirit spring were the backbone in supporting a Gu master's battles. Now, out of the 3 backbones of Ma tribe, 1 was broken. The weak Ma tribe that was left with 30% of their foundations suddenly had 10% less because of the drying spirit spring sea. However, Ma Yingjie had no countermeasures to deal with such a problem. If he had a river as before Gu, he could immediately restore Spirit Spring Sea to its original condition, resolving this problem, but he did not have it. Lord Tribe Leader, are Spirit Springs really so important? Fei Kai asked on the way back. After he returned to the tribe, as a benefactor who saved Ma Yingjie, he was immediately liberated from his slave status and was now a free person. At the same time, he was still Ma Yingjie's personal attendant. Ma Yingjie worriedly nodded. A spirit spring's drying up has an extremely huge influence towards Gu masters. And Gu masters are the pillars of a tribe. Our Ma tribe not only needs Gu masters as an important strength to resist all kinds of calamities during the blizzard disaster, but also to fight for new resources to develop the tribe after the disaster. Fei Kai exclaimed, then asked while walking, then, can't we find new spirit springs? Our warm pond valley is so large, who is to say that there are only these 3 spirit springs? Fei Kai's words were filled with his optimistic spirit. Xianxia gave a bitter laugh. Northern Plains spirit springs can indeed form in a short time. There might be a 4th spirit spring in Warm Pond Valley, but the probability is close to 0. The thing is, every 10 years as the blizzard approaches, spirit springs in all regions of Northern Plains will continue to become dry and dead. After the blizzard disperses, new spirit springs will gush out in large numbers. At that time, all the regions of Northern Plains will have plentiful water vegetation, and you might even find 1 spirit spring every 100 li. That is the best time for every tribe and every beast group to grow. It was like that. Fei Kai only then realized he had lived for this long and was still ignorant, and was not familiar to such situations. Ah! Suddenly, he screamed as he fell down to the side. They were walking a path beside the cliff. Fortunately it was a gentle slope and not a precipice. Fei Kai had lost his footing and rolled down from the slope, screaming as he fell. This guy. Xianxia was amused at the series of hilarious screams from Fei Kai, his tightly knitted brows slightly relaxed. You idiot, you can't even walk now. Climb up quickly, Xianxia suddenly stopped, his eyes opened wide as he looked incredulously at a brand new spirit spring gushing out from the slope. This spirit spring's mouth had been covered by a rock. But this stone was pushed by the rolling Fei Kai, letting the spirit spring that was covered reveal itself. This was clearly a recently formed spirit spring, otherwise my tribe would not have missed it during their search before the battle. The volume of the spirit spring was enormous, and in a short few moments of time, over 100 primeval stones gushed with the spring water and fell on the surrounding ground. This is actually a new spirit spring, and one that directly surpasses the volume of spirit spring A. Xianxia was so happy that even his eyes started reddening. Is this the so-called joy after extreme sorrow? This is definitely the blessing of our ancestors in longevity heaven. Tribe leader. I have returned. At this time, Fei Kai came back while limping a little, and as he saw the new spring, his eyes similarly opened wide. Strange, how could there suddenly be a spring here? Xianxia laughed heartily. Fei Kai, you are the lucky star that heaven sent to me. From today onwards, you should change your name. Fei Kai sounds similar to trash. How could I Xianxia have trash beside me? From now, you shall be called Hongyun, Fei Hongyun. It indicates luck shining on our Ma tribe, joy after extreme sorrow. However, Xianxia was not happy for long, as 7 days later, He tribe army arrived and surrounded Warm Pond Valley. The very night the He tribe army garrisoned nearby, the 3 spirit springs of Warm Pond Valley simultaneous turned black, completely polluted. A letter to surrender soon reached Xianxia's land. Xianxia had not expected He Lulan to not let him go even after clearly achieving the final victory. The spirit springs that were contaminated by the use of Gu worms could no longer produce primeval stones and were all useless. Although Ma tribe still had stocks of primeval stones, they had already lost the possibility of continuing to stay in Warm Pond Valley. I had not thought He Lulan would be so hell-bent on attacking. He has requested our Ma tribe to surrender in the letter, which does not violate the rules set by Giant Sun Immortal Venerable back then. Damn it, he is truly hateful. Xianxia clenched his fists, his heart filled with anger, hatred, helplessness and powerlessness. He Lulan, who is nicknamed Black Tyrant, has always been brutal and violent. It seems the battle before created a fear in him towards Ma tribe. But because of Ancestor Giant Sun's rules, he wants to put Ma tribe under his sight and continue to oppress us. Ma Yuliang was sitting stiffly on his chair and analyzed this with a heavy voice. After pausing for a while, he continued, actually, this is also good, we can surrender to He Lulan, which would mean we can enter Imperial Court blessed land as well. Xianxia shook his head. This is where He Lulan's sinister intent lies in. It is true my tribe will be able to stay in imperial court, but what about others? Let me ask you, how many tribesmen do we have left with surname Ma? Ma Yuliang paled as he answered, only over 130. Precisely so. Ma Yingjia nodded with a heavy expression. To grow our tribe, we would need to take in outsiders and also wantonly connect with marriage and have large numbers of offspring. But as long as He Lu Lan sent a command to forbid our Ma tribe from taking in outsiders and even only allowing us to have inter-tribe marriage, then how long would it take for our Ma tribe to grow? Ma Yuliang's face turned even paler. He realized the seriousness of this problem. Politics was dirty, and not allowing them to marry outsiders could be easily done. He Lu Lan would only need to use the reason of protecting the purity of Huang Jin family's bloodline and he would be able to justly suppress Ma tribe's development. Then what should we do? Ma Yuliang lost his composure. Ma Yingjia was silent for a while before resolutely saying, we will bestow surname Ma to the outsiders and take them as our own tribesmen. Lord Tribe Leader, if we do this, our Ma tribe's Huang Jin bloodline will really be. Ma Yuliang spoke hesitantly. We will have preventive measures. Huang Jin bloodline is our Ma tribe's pride, we can never let it be contaminated. If the situation takes a turn for the better, we can denounce these people and strip away their Ma surname. Ma Yuliang only then felt at ease and nodded, approving this plan. Chapter 546, The Way Forward for the Insignificant People. Moving carriages and neighing horses. The huge group of nearly 1 million advanced towards the central imperial court region of northern plains. The blizzard outside was blowing intensely, causing the big stomach horse to lower its head helplessly. The white snow on the ground was knee-deep, as everyone moved with extremely difficult steps. One by one, the blue farm slug Gu moved forward. Their stomachs were stuffed with all sorts of resources, turning their original size of 3 elephants into a mound-like hill. Carriages after carriages followed behind the blue farm slug Gu. In order to shield these mortals from the approaching blizzard, they were covered in frost. To prevent the slug Gu from freezing to death, 3 Gu masters would be in charge of 1 slug Gu, removing the frost on them while using fire path Gu worms to give them warmth, maintaining their temperature. The army pressed forward towards the imperial court. As the blizzard became larger, the army's speed became slower. Large number of mortal slaves fell during the journey, and never got up again. He Lu Lan could order Gu masters to save them, but he did not do so. Even though the imperial court blessed land was huge and could accommodate 5 million people, in He Lu Lan's opinion, the resources within the blessed land were his. Why would he distribute them to these lowly slaves? Every extra person meant he had to lose another bit of benefit. Using the blizzard to sacrifice large numbers of useless mortals, this was a hidden rule among all past lords of the imperial court. Mortal lives were cheap. They were like grass, once the blizzard was over, they would rapidly grow again, increasing in numbers and using up northern plains' scarce resources like leeches, awaiting the next 10-year blizzard. As the blizzard became stronger, the people move against the force of the wind. Fong Yuan was inside the large lizard house Gu, he could hear the wind outside the windows. Within the large lizard house Gu, it was warm as spring. Using it to move in such an environment had about 5 to 6 times the primeval essence expenditure as before. But to Fong Yuan, just his rank 5 peak stage 90% aperture could easily sustain this expenditure with no problem. Moreover, his second aperture had also advanced to rank 5 upper stage recently. The inception of this chapter's publication is linked to N.O.V.E.L.B.I.N. Fong Yuan came before the window, looking outside the tightly sealed glass window, towards the left. Ma tribe's members were there. After Ma Yingjia took the role of tribe leader, Ma Hongyun appeared, even Zhao Lianyun was beside him. Fong Yuan had already confirmed this secretly, and even instructed Gu tribe to pay special attention to Ma Hongyun and Zhao Lianyun. In his memory, Ma Hongyun obtained an inheritance of giant sun immortal venerable in 88 True Yang building. In Fang Yuan's following plans, he was a very useful pawn piece. As for Zhao Lianyun, she was still just a child, she posed no threat. At the same time, she was very close to Ma Hongyun. Fang Yuan wanted to observe them further. In my previous life, Ma Hongyun appeared. Now, despite my influence, Ma Hongyun still appeared. Then in the future, will he and Zhao Lianyun still reach that level of achievement just like in the previous life? After rebirth, Fang Yuan had been deeply interested towards the topic of changing history, a desire to know growing deep inside his heart. The flow of history had inertia, as well as changes. With his personal experience, the butterfly effect theorized on Earth was slightly off. 500 years in his past life, Ma Hongyun was given a surname and allowed to cultivate as a Gu master. That was because he obtained a relic Gu and gave it to Ma Yingjie. Right now, it was because of He Lulan's pressure that caused Ma Yingjie to have no choice but make this decision. This decision gave birth to a new Ma Hongyun. The process was different, but the result was the same. The event that unfolded before him made Fang Yuan ponder, as he uncontrollably thought of one word: fate. Fate, this was a word much more mysterious and ethereal than space or time. Legend says that there was a luck path among Gu master paths, but until today, no one could confirm it. However, there were many important characters that were connected to fate. It clearly indicated the existence of Destiny Gu. The second generation immortal venerable of the heavenly court, the creator of Wisdom Path, controlled this Gu, thus being able to plot against 3 future demon venerables. In 3 Kings' blessed land, Fang Yuan was informed by the land spirit, Red Lotus Demon Venerable was a great hero, breaking the restriction of destiny, allowing all life in this world to regain control of their own fate. In fact, Fang Yuan had vaguely heard such a rumor: Giant Sun Immortal Venerable controlled a luck path Gu worm, thus he had extremely good fortune and ease in his cultivation journey, avoiding disasters and gaining great blessings. In this world, is there really a thread of fate that connects all living beings together? Fang Yuan went into deep thought. In the 500 years of his previous life, although he became a Gu immortal, he only managed to unravel a tiny portion of this world's mystery and secrets. Be it his previous life, or this life, the more he progressed, the stronger he got, the more he felt his own ignorance and insignificance. The more insignificant and ignorant he felt, the more interest he had in moving forward, he wanted to progress further. Compared to this world, I am merely an ant. Fang Yuan's blood was filled with pride and humility, obstinance and understanding. Collecting all his scattered thoughts, Fang Yuan concentrated his attention on the matter ahead. Imperial Court Blessed Land rejects Gu Immortals. I am already rank 5 peak stage. This is likely the first and the last time I am entering the Imperial Court, to physically come into contact with 88 True Yang building. But this time, He Lulan purposely went over to Warm Pond Valley to force my tribe to surrender. This was a strange move. Fang Yuan's gaze became solemn. My tribe had already lost terribly, and they had the Huang Jin bloodline. Why would He Lulan do this? This was understandable in his previous life. Back then, my tribe was not completely helpless, they had strong defense and was a turtle shell that was hard to take down. He Lulan had no choice but to force them to surrender. Now that my tribe was declining, He Lulan still moved his army and laboriously forced my tribe to surrender. He spent so much effort to suppress my tribe. Did he have deep enmity with my tribe personally? Fang Yuan shook his head. There were no evidence that could support this thought. Never mind, maybe He Lulan was just spurred on and wanted to raise his merits. This is only a small detail, my own strength is always the most important thing. Thinking so, his mind entered his aperture. The injuries from using the killer move 4-Arm Earth King had already recovered. As for the killer move, he had several adjustments. He changed Earth Overlord Gu to Wind Overlord Gu. As for the other supplementary Gu worms, they were adjusted accordingly. This way, he would not need to step on the ground, and would fight best in the wind. The stronger the wind, the more battle strength he can display, and the smaller the drawbacks he would face after using the killer move. But Fang Yuan was not satisfied. This was only a temporary compromise, the weakness of this killer move had not been reduced. If he fought in an environment without wind, the consequences of using the killer move would not be any better as before. For Gu masters, there were way too many methods to restrict the wind. Once his weakness was exposed publicly, his killer move would no longer have any threat to his enemies, they would have no fear towards it. Actually, no matter how good my modifications were, I would not be satisfied. My true aim is to eliminate the weakness of my strength enslavement dual cultivation. The killer move 4-arm Earth King is merely a starting point. But this result could not escape from the limits of transformation path. What Fang Yuan wanted was to completely and utterly modify his body, he did not want to achieve such temporary transformation. Nevertheless, reaching this point had already expended Fang Yuan's 500 years of knowledge accumulation. After all, Fang Yuan was a blood path Gu immortal back then, his attainment in strength and enslavement paths were merely subsidiaries, he merely touched the tip of the iceberg. If possible, Fang Yuan wanted to quickly become a blood path Gu immortal. But it was different now after rebirth. His vital Gu was not a blood path Gu. A crucial condition for becoming a Gu immortal was the vital Gu. Originally, after Fang Yuan got the second aperture Gu, he would have a second chance. But that crucial blood path vital Gu was still buried in the inheritance, it had not appeared yet. Fang Yuan could not wait in vain, the situation was forcing him, he could only choose to strengthen himself now, to deal with the challenges ahead, and all the enemies lurking around him. Staying alive, that was the most important thing. Fang Yuan had also realized that his foundation in strength and enslavement paths were lacking. His involvement in a wide range of paths in his previous life allowed him to easily control Gu worms of many paths, while being skilled in the combination of different Gu worms. Among them, his attainment in enslavement path was the highest. But to resolve the issue of strength enslavement dual cultivation, an age-old question, he would need to move ahead of history and undergo creative and daring experiments, his foundation was lacking in this aspect. Even though Fang Yuan had clues to Luo Pavali now, maybe after he obtains Luo Pavali, he would be able to convert to the glorious soul path. But Fang Yuan never liked placing his hopes on certain possibilities in the future. Even if he changes to soul path in the future, his hard work in enslavement and strength would be a precious resource and would greatly benefit his future cultivation. Knowing his own inaptitude, Fang Yuan had been reading intensely these few days. He used his huge pool of battle merits to exchange for Dragon Horse Spirit, 3 Hearts Combination Soul, all sorts of killer moves, as well as dozens of small strength path inheritances. He also got the recorded journal of 4 enslavement masters, among them, Rat Epidemic, Thunder Explosion, Leopard Rush, and Horse Barrage. These 4 killer moves were invaluable. Fang Yuan's foundation had always been thick, these days he had been reading laboriously, his understanding and knowledge in strength and enslavement path surged greatly by several times compared to before. Different from his previous life where he studied these paths as a side path, he had personally experienced these paths this time, and together with his theories, he gained countless inspirations. But these inspirations could not resolve his problem now. Actually, looking at information about the transformation of the body, the first records were in. When Renzu fell into a certain death situation, in order to save her own father, desolate ancient moon came to Qingbai Mountain and killed the rockman. Fang Yuan had a burst of inspiration as he flipped beside him. This was the first classic of the Gu Master world, countless mysteries were hidden within it. Even existences like Gu Immortal kept a copy of it with them at all times, occasionally flipping and learning from it. Chapter 547, Search for Success. Feng Yuan flipped the Legends of Renzu, and this was recorded within. When Renzu was in a certain death situation, after he fell into Luopa Valley and had no way to get out. Desolate Ancient Moon, in order to save her father, climbed up Qingbai Mountain and tried to get to the top, in order to get that one and only Success Gu. As long as she made a wish to Success Gu, Desolate Ancient Moon would be able to save Renzu. But when Desolate Ancient Moon got to the foot of the mountain, she was obstructed by the rockmen. It turns out that when Renzu's second daughter arrived at Qingbai Mountain, she ruined Love Gu's wonderful dream. Out of anger, Love Gu awakened the rockmen in order to obstruct Desolate Ancient Moon. After Desolate Ancient Moon killed the rockmen, and got to the mountain waste. Love Gu had yet to leave, it appeared before Desolate Ancient Moon and said, "O human, you interrupted my sweet dream, yet you still desire to take away Success Gu. Now I will topple the entire Qingbai Mountain, you can have fun finding that one and only Success Gu out of billions of rocks." Ha ha ha. Saying so, Love Gu crashed towards Qingbai Mountain. Qingbai Mountain was not an ordinary mountain, it was a mound entirely made up of stacked rocks. After Love Gu crashed into it, the entire mountain crumbled. Love Gu left smugly, leaving behind Desolate Ancient Moon, who looked at this huge pile of rocks in a daze. How was she going to find that one and only Success Gu among this chaotic pile of rocks? Desolate Ancient Moon was troubled. Without a choice, she had to return to Cognition Gu to seek advice. After Cognition Gu heard Desolate Ancient Moon's description, it sighed. Love Gu had always been demanding and unreasonable, even if it was me, or my child Wisdom Gu, we would not want to confront it. Right now, Qingbai Mountain had collapsed, you can only look at these rocks one by one, to find the real Success Gu from among them. There are no other ways. Cognition Gu said again, but you have to be careful, there are two Gu on Qingbai Mountain. One is Success Gu, at the peak of the mountain. The other is Failure Gu, at the bottom of the mountain. Failure is the mother of success, but it also has many other children. Those rocks are Success Gu's siblings. When you pick those rocks, many unthinkably bad situations will occur. I will tell you a secret here, as long as you continue to affirm the belief of me in your heart, these disastrous situations will gradually disappear. Desolate Ancient Moon heard this and her heart sank. She asked again, then how do I differentiate the rocks in my hand? What do Success Gu and Failure Gu look like? Cognition Gu sighed, they look almost the same, but it is easy to differentiate them. Just hold them in your hands, you will learn about their identities. In your search for Success Gu, that Failure Gu will be your biggest threat. You cannot hold on to the Failure Gu, otherwise, you will be completely lost and your life would be in danger. Desolate Ancient Moon heard this and nodded, expressing her gratitude. Cognition instructed her again before leaving, do not say that I taught you that. If Love Gu comes to find me, I'd be in trouble. In the face of fanatic and toyful love, wisdom and cognition can only run away. Don't worry, I won't expose you. Desolate Ancient Moon agreed, returning to Qingbai Mountain. Seeing the huge pile of rocks, her heart was gloomy. Success was not easily obtainable. To obtain success, she would need to bend down and search while taking great risks. Desolate Ancient Moon breathed in deeply, picking up the first rock. This rock was ordinary, but when Desolate Ancient Moon held it in her hand, it shook slightly. A light wound appeared on Desolate Ancient Moon's hand. This was not Success Gu, but one of Success' siblings, one of the children of Failure Gu. Desolate Ancient Moon's heart was shocked, she touched the wound on her hand as she recalled what Cognition Gu said, when you pick those rocks, many unthinkably bad situations will occur. You have to affirm the belief of me in your heart. So this is the terrible situation. Desolate Ancient Moon understood. She chanted in her heart, me, 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 me. As she chanted, the wound on her hand miraculously healed. Only a light scar was left. She tossed the first rock away, and picked up the second rock. When she held this rock in her hand, desolate ancient Moon's heart jumped, as an intense feeling of fear assaulted her. Desolate ancient Moon was shivering in fear, she almost ran away to escape, away from this place. But she held on, and chanted me. After a long time, she slowly recovered as the fear in her heart was gone by half, finally picking up the third rock. This rock made her dejected. She could not help but think, I want to find that one and only Success Gu among these billions of rocks. How difficult is that? How long would it take me? She could barely move anymore, she felt that the future was shrouded in darkness, it was too difficult to find Success Gu. She almost wanted to give up, but she thought about her father who was trapped in life and death door. If I give up, who will save father? Desolate ancient Moon shuddered, oh no, I forgot to chant me. Desolate ancient Moon chanted again, getting rid of the despair in her heart, bending down to pick up another rock. Once she held the fourth rock in her hand, desolate ancient Moon was shocked to find out that her nose had changed, it turned into a pig's nose. She chanted me once again, allowing her nose to recover. Spending a lot of time, she exerted all her effort to get rid of the pig nose. But her nose was still slightly deformed compared to before. Like this, desolate ancient Moon continued to pick up rocks, hoping to find that Success Gu. But days passed, and all she found was Failure Gu's children. Among these rocks, some made her injured, some made her dejected, despair, or fear, while some made her grow a pig head, rat's tail, etc. Despite desolate ancient Moon chanting me continuously, some of the scars still remained on her. As they accumulated, these scars turned her into a monster. She grew 6 heads, 3 arms, 5 tails, and looked like a centaur. She had 16 legs, and some of her legs had soft fur, some had snake-like scales, some had sharp claws, some had tough hooves. In the search for success, people often transform and become completely different. But desolate ancient Moon also became much stronger because of this. After going through so much, she had become several hundred times as strong as before. These rocks could not longer trouble her. Success, oh success, where in the world are you? Her 7 mouths opened together. Some were screaming, some were shouting, some were whispering while others were growling. The more she failed, the more she desired success in her heart. After her great effort, the number of unpicked rocks became fewer and fewer. Eventually, when there were only 2 rocks left, desolate ancient Moon was stuck between 2 difficult choices. Undeniably, among these 2 rocks, one was Success Gu, while the other was Failure Gu. If she obtained Success Gu, that would be the best. But if she picked Failure Gu, then desolate ancient Moon would become completely lost, she would be in danger of dying. Even if desolate ancient Moon became a monster, becoming so much stronger. 1 step to heaven, 1 step to hell, what should she choose? Desolate ancient Moon could not help but become hesitant. If I do not dare to take the next step for fear of failure, then I will never succeed. I am already so strong, success is a step away from me, even if I take Failure Gu, as long as I chant me, I should be able to endure it, right? Eventually, she mustered her courage and stretched out her palm, picking one of the rocks. Unfortunately, she picked Failure Gu. An unforeseen feeling of lost, self-doubt assaulted her. Me. Desolate ancient Moon continued to chant me, but her voice became softer, as her 7 mouths stopped moving eventually, her expression turning into a daze. She had fallen into endless perplexity, she had completely lost herself. The biggest tragedy for a human, is to lose your sense of self. The initial instance of this chapter being available happened at N0v3L.bjn. Sigh. After reading this, Fang Yuan sighed as he closed the book. At once, his thoughts were drifting as he showed a very complicated expression. It was still snowing outside the window, snowflakes were floating in the air. As the 10-year disaster approaches, the blizzard did not show signs of weakening, instead it was growing. Northern Plains, end of December. When He Lu Lan led the army and then arrived at the last minute, at Imperial Court Blessed Land's entrance, the alliance had about half its members left. A large number of mortals died on the way there. In fact, many Gu masters died from the attacks of beast groups. The item to open the Imperial Court Blessed Land was on He Lu Lan. When he stood up, a mild golden light shone in the air. Immediately after, the golden light intensified, forming a light ring. The light ring expanded, turning into a grand city gate. On the gate, there were exquisite silvery flower patterns. Many fist-sized copper buttons were plastered on the gate. Boom! There was like an invisible hand behind the door, pulling the heavy door open. Immediately, the thick smell of sandalwood spread. The snow in the air stopped moving. Under the influence of a mysterious power, the snow in the air gathered like bees. In an instant, a solid and magnificent ice ladder was created. At the top of the ladder, it was connected to the floating Imperial Court gate. It extended all the way to the ground. Imperial Court Blessed Land. He Lu Lan could not conceal his excitement. He took 3 steps as he ascended the ice ladder, becoming the first person to enter the Imperial Court. 88 Truyang Building. Fong Yuan was the second person. His gaze became solemn as he took calm strides in. After that, Tai Bai Yunsheng, Hao Ji Lu and other high-level experts went in. About an hour later, the entire He tribe army had entered Imperial Court Blessed Land. The ice ladder broke apart, as the Red City Gate closed itself. The light ring shrunk into one dot and vanished. They have all entered. The Gu immortals observed in secret retracted their helpless and nostalgic gazes. Chapter 548, Inheritance Hidden in Eerie Fire Python's Den. When Fong Yuan opened his eyes, the scene before him had completely transformed. The sky was light gold in color, the land was like spring, with green agricultural terraces, there were gentle streams flowing, and low-lying mounds, one could see far and wide in this boundless plains. This was a serene and peaceful world, forming a great contrast to the blizzard outside. This was Northern Plains' greatest utopia, Imperial Court Blessed Land. It opens every 10 years, as a reward to the Lord of Northern Plains. Fong Yuan looked around and found that he was alone. Although everyone entered from the same gate, after they stepped through the gate, they were separated and randomly transported to any area of the Blessed Land. This was as per usual. Fong Yuan was not shocked. According to the earlier agreement, next he had to travel towards the center of the Blessed Land. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's former place of residence was there, Northern Plains' sacred palace. I am finally in here. Fong Yuan regulated his breathing. The Imperial Court contest was only a prelude. What was truly important was the following events. He tried activating Eagle Rise Gu. His crystal purple primeval essence moved according to his will, entering the Eagle Rise Gu. Swoosh! With a light sound, followed by intense pain, 2 broad and huge pitch-black eagle wings grew on his back. Within Imperial Court Blessed Land, the use of mortal Gu was not restricted. As for immortal Gu, they could not be restrained in any blessed land. The strong eagle wings flapped lightly and brought Fong Yuan into the air. Flying in the air, feeling the light wind brushing past his face, he could smell the unique scent of nature that permeated the entire Blessed Land. Compared to the outside world, this place was extremely peaceful. It was like heaven. Fong Yuan was in no hurry. He flew slowly as he enjoyed the scenery around him. Imperial Court Blessed Land's landscape was quite similar to Northern Plains. At one glance, it was a huge plain. There were mounds and slopes with beautiful and elegant lines. It was like a stream of jade green flowing smoothly without obstacles. But different from Northern Plains, every 8 li, there would be a tower on the ground. These towers made Fang Yuan think of totem pillars. Each one was about 25 meters tall. They were tall and straight, with a gold and silver surface, with lots of precious gems adorning it, beautiful and exquisite. In the tower, there were countless barriers, like a beehive. Inside, were many gu worms. When the worm groups in the Blessed Land give birth to gu, these gu worms would detach themselves from the group and live in these towers. The towers were built by Giant Sun. No matter what type of gu worm it was, they would be able to find their food inside the towers. Every tower had tens of thousands of gu worms. These gu consists of many species. There were large numbers of common gu and few rare gu. Undeniably, each of these towers were a huge fortune. Even Fang Yuan can feel his attraction to them. He could even see a group of about 1,000 starlight firefly gu in one of the towers. Unfortunately, I cannot take these gu as I wish. When the Imperial Court contest first started, some daring gu masters tried to steal or even attack the towers, to take the wild gu inside. In the end, they were like candles. Their entire body melted until their white bone skeleton was left, smashed into a pile. Fang Yuan's gaze concentrated. This was the heavenly power of the blessed land, the power of heaven and earth. No mortals could resist it. Even gu immortals would be left in a pathetic state when competing against it. After enough lessons taught, by now, no gu master had the intention to attack the towers. If we chase the origin, the gu immortal who created Imperial Court Blessed Land was a space path gu immortal whose name can no longer be found. Because of this blessed land is huge, far larger than other blessed lands. Before Giant Sun Immortal Venerable became an immortal, he inherited this place luckily and became the blessed land's new owner. After Giant Sun became an immortal venerable, and obtained unparalleled power, he displayed great methods and set up the tradition of the Imperial Court contest, allowing this ancient blessed land to continue existing until now. Fang Yuan flew as he recalled. The methods of an immortal venerable were beyond his understanding. Who knows how Giant Sun Immortal Venerable managed to do it, but the result was, under his manipulation, Imperial Court Blessed Land no longer suffered from heavenly tribulations or earthly calamities. Hiss hiss hiss. After flying for an hour, past numerous towers, Fang Yuan was provoked by a giant python on a small valley. This bright red giant python was at least 100 meters long. Its body was as thick as a tower. There was a sharp horn on its head. A pair of blood eyes stared at Fang Yuan fixatedly, hissing with its tongue continuously. Its tongue was a creepy purple color, and there were eerie blue flames on it. It's a rarely seen eerie fire dragon python. Fang Yuan was slightly shocked. At this moment, the giant python opened its mouth, and shot out a carriage-sized blue-purple flame. The flame approached quickly, as the temperature in the air rose sharply. From a few hundred steps away, Fang Yuan's hair and eyebrows were showing signs of drying up. It showed the terrifying temperature of the blue-purple flame. Fang Yuan's eyebrows rose as he flapped his eagle wings, going to a higher altitude and avoiding the flame easily. Killer move, Four-Arm Wind King. He activated more than 10 gu worms at once. His crystal purple was expending rapidly, meanwhile 2 bronze arms grew out of his body. Thereafter, he flew down like a comet, straight towards the python. Bam! He crashed fiercely into the eerie fire dragon python, engaging in fierce combat with it. At once, smoke rose as shockwaves were sent out, flames shot out as the valley shook. Eerie fire dragon python was a mutated beast king. Mutated beasts has rank 4 battle strength, while their king had strength equivalent to a rank 5 gu master. But Fang Yuan was rank 5 peak stage long ago, and after using his killer move, his battle strength was even higher. If the eerie fire dragon python laid low and hid itself, Fang Yuan might not have noticed it while being on the move. But since it provoked him on purpose, Fang Yuan felt the urge to hunt and improve his killer move by using it as a training dummy. After half an hour, the battle was over. Fang Yuan's body was charred black, he stood in a completely destroyed and ruined valley. The eerie fire dragon python's huge body was half covered in broken mountain rocks. Fang Yuan coughed a few times, throwing up some blood. The improved killer move had much less severe aftermath than before. A part of the reason was that the eerie fire dragon python did not have wisdom like humans, it could not find out Fang Yuan's weakness amidst battle. If the wind was restricted, Fang Yuan would be in a much worse state. This battle was not easy. Imperial Court Blessed Land was a great environment, there were many Gu worms, thus there was a larger number of fire path wild Gu worms on the eerie fire dragon python. Among them, there were several valuable ones. Fang Yuan's killer move was strong, but it did not have much defense against fire path. If he did not need to dodge the flames, the 30-minute battle would be faster by at least a third. Fang Yuan started collecting his loot. This mutated beast king's body was full of value. For example, the python blood was a top ingredient in feeding blood path Gu worms. The python skin, tendons etc., would cause a huge commotion if sold in the mortal market. Especially the eerie fire snake gall, it was extremely valuable, it could even be sold in treasure yellow heaven. Fang Yuan organized his gains, in order to save time, he only kept the valuable items in his Gu. Eerie fire dragon python, they live in caves as a family. If there are any young dragon pythons, I can capture them and place them inside Hu Immortal Blessed Land to breed. It would be a good investment for the future. Fang Yuan thought about this and searched around. Very soon, he made a discovery. There's a Gu master inheritance here. Fang Yuan did not find a baby dragon python, but found a bright red rock, like that of a fire lotus. With his expertise, he quickly understood that this was a Gu master's work. When he got close to the huge rock, this fire lotus-like rock opened up in layers, like a blossoming lotus. The fire lotus rock opened completely, showing the Gu worms inside as well as a stele. The stele was one with the huge rock, there were Northern Plains words on it. Fang Yuan read it thoroughly and understood its existence. The fire path Gu master who left behind his inheritance was called Xianxia, he was a righteous rank for fire path Gu master. He entered this valley by accident, and was attacked by the eerie fire dragon python. Before dying from his injuries, he left behind his Gu worms helplessly and made the inheritance. In the future, if a fated individual comes here, then this set of Gu worms would be his. Xianxia left behind 7 Gu worms. But after these years, 4 died, and only 3 remained. Among the 3 Gu worms, only one attracted Fang Yuan, it was the rank 4 fire pupil Gu. When a Gu master uses fire pupil Gu, fire would burn at anywhere they looked at, burning their opponents. Such a convenient attacking method often caught people off guard. But it had its weaknesses. If it was used for a long time, the Gu master's eyes would be damaged. They would need to use good healing Gu as well as complementing Gu worms to weaken this side effect. This fire pupil Gu was Xianxia's core Gu worm. Aside from the Gu worms he left behind, there were Gu recipes that he recorded on the stele. Fang Yuan looked at it 3 times, storing the information inside East Window Gu. Although he did not cultivate fire path, these recipes were useful for him when researching about Gu refinement or even in his cultivation, as a form of inspiration. Especially the refinement recipe of the fire pupil Gu, it had high value. According to this Gu master, rank 4 fire pupil Gu was advanced using rank 3 fire eye Gu, together with sight blow Gu and some associated Gu refinement materials. Fang Yuan knew about rank 3 fire eye Gu, it was a one-time expenditure Gu used for investigative purposes. It could transform the eyes into fire eyes, having the ability to see through fog, but it did not work every time, once it failed, one would turn blind. Fang Yuan knew about sight blow Gu too, how Ji Lu from the He tribe army had one. He had once used it together with rank 4 location swap Gu. Fang Yuan kept the fire pupil Gu, he did not intend to go onto the fire path. Fire pupil Gu did not suit his current style. While the attacking method was convenient, it was very restrictive, it was too reliant on visual contact. There were too many strange Gu in this world, there were countless methods to prevent eye contact. There was no strongest Gu worm, only strongest Gu master. Gu worms were the hosts of the great Tao, they were fundamentally tools. When Gu master used them together, they could form great effects. Some combinations were even far superior and harder to counter, they were known as killer moves. This means, this should be the first Gu master inheritance I've obtained in Imperial Court Blessed Land. Fang Yuan thought about it, feeling interested. In Imperial Court Blessed Land, there were countless Gu master inheritances. It was because of the superb environment. In contrast, many inheritances in the main world were often destroyed by calamities and beasts before the fated person arrives. Furthermore, all the Gu masters that entered Imperial Court Blessed Land were experts that had undergone tough battles, they had to have at least some superior qualities, if they were not heroes or grand conquerors already. Thus, there were abundant inheritances inside Imperial Court Blessed Land. Anyone who was fated would have gains. Fang Yuan kept the 3 Gu worms inside his aperture, before smashing the steel to bits. Next, he searched around, finding a cave indeed. He entered the cave and walked to the lowest part of it, at about 100 meters underground, he found 6 eerie fire dragon python eggs. He was troubled now. If it was a baby eerie fire dragon python, he could bring them away to Hu Immortal Blessed Land and allow them to hunt freely. But it was not easy to hatch an eerie fire dragon python's egg. He needed to use eerie fire and python blood to bathe them daily. After the little dragon python hatches, they need to taught by the eerie fire dragon python personally, on how to use their strength to hunt. Fang Yuan did not have the time or effort to waste just to hatch these eggs. There was no choice, he quickly kept these eggs before getting out of the hot cave, flying towards the sky and continuing on his journey without any lingering feelings. Chapter 549, Subduing Azure Wolves with the Help of Snow Bats. Just like this, Fang Yuan flew for another 3 days, but could not see even a glimpse of the sacred palace on the plains. Fang Yuan thought to himself, it seems that I was transported very far away after entering Imperial Court Blessed Land. Otherwise with my speed, I would have reached the sacred palace within 3 days. On the way, Fang Yuan met many Gu masters and mortals. They were He tribe alliance members. After entering the Blessed Land, those with ability would gather at the sacred palace. Those who did not would choose a place and settle down. Imperial Court Blessed Land was not safe, there were large numbers of wild Gu worms and vicious beasts. He tribe army came here and destroyed their order, disturbing the beasts and worms which had already sorted out their territory. Thus, conflict and killing was natural. But all in all, the environment was infinitely better than the outside world, which was face a fierce blizzard. Fang Yuan had seen several slaughtering scenes along the way. Some were beast group corpses, some were humans with broken limbs. Imperial Court Blessed Land had much greater foundation than Hu Immortal Blessed Land. There was no weather changes in Hu Immortal Blessed Land, but Imperial Court Blessed Land had it. In fact, Imperial Court Blessed Land had morning and night. This might not be spectacular in mortal eyes, because in northern plains, there was also day and night, they were used to it. Only someone like Fang Yuan would understand the true value of this. It was very rare for Blessed Land to have weather changes. If there was day and night, it meant that this particular heaven and earth had sufficiently deep foundations, at least, the time path law here was quite complete. Normally, Blessed Land with astronomical phenomenon were first-rate Blessed Lands. Fang Yuan's Hu Immortal Blessed Land had not reached this level yet. Day and night was the characteristic of grotto heavens. Blessed lands were small worlds. Above blessed lands, there were even more complete and refined small worlds, they were grotto heavens. Imperial Court blessed land already had the characteristics of a grotto heaven, it could be said to be a quasi-grotto heaven. Langya blessed land was originally a grotto heaven that fell, by now, it had lost its day and night trait. Night descended. Fong Yuan looked at the sky, it turned from a glorious gold color to a light and elegant silver. The daytime in Imperial Court blessed land was a dazzling golden day. At night, it was not completely dark, as silver light shine in the sky. Flying in the air, Fong Yuan witnessed the changing of the sky. Silver light rained down, compared to the hot and dazzling golden rays during daytime, it had traces of sharpness to it. Fong Yuan's flying speed was slowing down, he looked down and after searching for a while, he found a gentle slope. With his years of experience, he knew that the gentle slope was a great place to set up camp. But he was in no hurry to descend, he circled around the slope several times, like a bird flying freely. Eventually, when he confirmed that this area was safe, he landed and kept his wings. The strong eagle wings were pitch black like steel. After Fong Yuan stopped using Eagle Rise Gu, the wings vanished into thin air, as one or two black feathers were left floating in the air, landing on the grass. Fong Yuan willed and activated Big Lizard House Gu. Immediately, a mystical light shot out from his aperture, landing in front of him. The light expanded and grew, as a Big Lizard House Gu eventually appeared. The lizard opened its mouth and shot out its tongue, showing the door in its mouth. The tongue was like a red carpet ladder, as Fong Yuan stepped on it, the door opened automatically. After he entered the Lizard House Gu, the door closed on its own, as the lizard closed its huge mouth without a gap. Although Fong Yuan was energetic, he was still of mortal body, when fatigue accumulates to a degree, he will need to rest to ensure that he stays at peak condition in terms of mind and body. Chi-chi-chi-chi. After Fong Yuan got into the lizard house, he heard some noises outside. His gaze concentrated as he muttered, as expected, it is the blissful snow bats. Fong Yuan had already understood the rules, when day turns to night, large groups of blissful snow bats would fly out. The blissful snow bats were pure white like snow, they were furry and did not look ugly like ordinary bats, in fact they were rather cute. Such a beast group was huge in scale, each group had about several hundreds of thousands of bats. Among them were beast kings, and myriad beast kings were very common, there were even snow bat beast emperors. Even with Fong Yuan's dual aperture and killer move like four-arm wind king, he could not fight against them, he could only avoid them. The snow bats only hunted in the air, eating the particles in the air or flying worms. The Big Lizard House Gu was not part of their food chain. But because of Fong Yuan's vigilance, he moved the Big Lizard House Gu to the back of the slope. The big lizard curled up into a ball, from the sky, it resembled a huge rock. Fong Yuan was on the bed as he slept, but before long, the cries of the blissful snow bats became very erratic, as wolf howls could be heard as well. What's going on? Fong Yuan was woken up by this noise, he opened his eyes and got up from bed, going to the window. The inception of this chapter's publication is linked to N0, Vel, B, J, N. Only to see that in the silvery backdrop, two beast groups were fighting. The snow-white lump had a grand scale, it was the blissful snow bats. As for the dark green lump, it was a pack of azure wolves, although they were fewer in numbers, they fought fiercely and had great cooperation. Although they were many snow bats, under the wolves' attacks, they suffered huge losses. Fong Yuan's brows lifted, feeling slightly shocked. Azure Wolf had a trace of the desolate beast Heavenly Wolf's bloodline, thus it could float in mid-air even as a cub. A mature Azure Wolf can use this talent to its limits, able to run freely in the air. Azure Wolves were elites, they were different from ordinary wolf groups. Among the Azure Wolf group, each Azure Wolf was at least 100 Beast King. Azure Wolf groups were often small, but they had great battle strength. But regardless of how strong a wolf group is, they cannot withstand the trial of time, and the trials of mortality. Right now, in Northern Plains sky, barely any Azure Wolves could be seen. They were getting rarer, going to be extinct soon. However, as the largest blessed land in Northern Plains, Imperial Court Blessed Land had such a huge scaled Azure Wolf group, it was not a surprise. The wolves got more energetic as they fought, as the bat group gradually got into a disadvantage. After leaving behind several tens of thousands of corpses, they escaped. The Azure Wolves did not have many deaths. Most of the Azure Wolves landed on the ground and started consuming the bat corpses. Some of them remained in the air, looking around and staying vigilant. Fong Yuan's heart was moved. After entering the blessed land, my wolf group had scattered. Imperial Court Blessed Land is too wide, I cannot gather them here in such a short time. This Azure Wolf group is really timely. Not only can they fly to keep up with my pace, they can even protect me. In the future when we encounter bat groups, we can just charge through. At the same time, several wolves found Fong Yuan's big lizard house Gu and surrounded it. Fong Yuan left the Gu house immediately and kept the big lizard house Gu, charging towards the myriad beast king in the sky. The wolf group went into a commotion as they attacked Fong Yuan from all directions. But the Azure Wolves which had just eaten were moving sluggishly, their battle intent had also decreased severely. This was the best time for Fong Yuan to subdue the myriad wolf king. Fong Yuan snickered, he turned left and right, making circles in the air. With his flying master attainment, these Azure Wolves could only chase after him fruitlessly. The myriad wolf king that Fong Yuan was going after was different from the other two myriad wolf kings. In the earlier battle, it had charged ahead and sustained some injuries, as well as losing some wild Gu on it. Fong Yuan had paid close attention to it earlier, and knew all the wild Gu worms currently on it. Going up to the myriad wolf king, Fong Yuan activated the killer move 4-arm Wind King and thrashed the Wolf King. This unlucky myriad wolf king was beaten into a daze by Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan used this chance to activate rank 5 Wolf Enslavement Gu, subduing it. Once it joined Fong Yuan, it howled and a third of the Azure Wolf group changed sides along with it. Fong Yuan laughed loudly. It was dangerous to subdue a myriad wolf king under the attack of the wolf group, but now that he had succeeded, the situation was different. With the wolf group, the situation was overturned. Under Fong Yuan's manipulation, the wolf group attacked from left and right, cooperating with him and surrounding the second Azure myriad wolf king. The wild wolf group attacked furiously, as Fong Yuan used his wolf group to form a line of defense, protecting himself. He himself, engaged with the myriad wolf king. After 15 minutes, Fong Yuan subdued the second myriad wolf king. Victory was assured. The final myriad wolf king saw this and immediately ran, bringing its subordinates to escape with it. Fong Yuan first stopped his bleeding and checked his own injuries. After checking the battlefield, he kept the big lizard house Gu and shifted the campsite. This area was filled with the intense smell of blood. Quickly, waves and waves of beast groups were attracted. If Fong Yuan continued staying there, he would be disturbed endlessly. About 10 li away, he rested for 4 hours before flapping his wings and continuing his journey. But different from before, Fong Yuan was now surrounded by 2 Azure myriad wolf kings, 38,000 beast kings, and 256,000 beast kings. It was a huge force. In the blink of an eye, 6 days of traveling went by. In this process, Fong Yuan found 3 inheritances. They were small inheritances, however, in Fong Yuan's eyes, they were as good as nothing. What was worth mentioning was, the wolf group expanded. With the foundation of 2 Azure myriad wolf kings, another was subdued. This way, Fong Yuan had 3 Azure myriad wolf kings under his control. Imperial Court Blessed Land was a true land of treasures. There were huge beast groups within, and even the rare azure wolf was a common species here. Other than the azure wolves, Feng Yuan subdued batches of night wolves, wind wolves, turtleback wolves, and vermilion flame wolves along the way. These wolves were originally his to begin with, except that they were scattered after entering the Blessed Land. Feng Yuan had only found a small portion of them by now. Chapter 550, Poet Immortal's Demise on Xianxia Peak. 2 days later. A high mountain peak protruded Feng Yuan's vision. The deep blue mountain was like a lone vulture with a bizarre shape. Feng Yuan was somewhat startled as his gaze became suffused with joy. This should be Xianxia Peak. It seems my direction is correct. According to Gu Immortal Lord Tian Ku's description in the past life, the place where the vulture's gaze falls in is the sacred palace. Immortal Court Blessed Land had a lofty and holy position in the hearts of Northern Plains people, and was a spiritual symbol. It was also a cradle which had nurtured many Northern Plains Gu immortals in the Imperial Court contests before. When Central Continent invaded Northern Plains, they had first attacked this significant strategic location. Due to the lack of preparations, Immortal Court Blessed Land was breached by the alliance of Central Continent's Gu immortals, and the sacred palace was ruthlessly destroyed, turning into a ruin. 88 Truyang Building was also destroyed, vanishing in the surging river of history, and causing people to sigh while wringing their wrist. Lord Tian Ku was one of the Gu immortals who participated in the surprise attack against Immortal Court Blessed Land. Feng Yuan made his plan by referencing the surprise attack methods of the Central Continent's Gu immortals. There are people on Xianxia Peak. When Feng Yuan was about to cross the Xianxia Peak with his wolf group, he suddenly paused as he saw many Gu masters at the summit of the peak. Among were familiar people as well. His thoughts moved and decided to not hurry on his way, but instead descended to the Xianxia Peak with his wolf group. Pan Ping greets Lord Wolf King. Brother Shan Yin, we meet again. Looking at the Wolf King descending, the Gu masters all felt their hearts shiver. From among them, 2 Gu masters walked out. One was Pan Ping, who had become rich and famous with this time's Imperial Court content, while the other was one of the twin demons Tai Bai Yunxing invited, Zhu Zai. Pan Ping was now already at rank 4 peak stage, and with Soul Blade Gu, his battle strength could match against some rank 5 Gu masters. Zhu Zai was a strength path rank 5 Gu master and was an expert in close combat, thus he was much more fearful of Soul Blade Gu than other people. He had been separated from Gao Yang when he entered Imperial Court, and on the way to the Sacred Palace, he got into an argument with Pan Ping. We greet Wolf King. After Pan Ping and Zhu Zai, the rest of the Gu masters greeted one after another while kneeling on the ground. In Ma Tribe Army, Feng Yuan's prestige was raised to the highest status, and was recognized as the #1 person of this generation. His prestige suppressing He Lulan and even Yi Lui Sang, who had a fire path immortal Gu. If not for Chang Shani not being of Huang Jin bloodline and He Lulan being the alliance leader, there might have been people who would have shouted to change the alliance leader. Stand up, there is no need to be so restrained. Feng Yuan was sitting on an azure myriad Wolf King as he lightly nodded and then directly asked, for you guys to gather here, what inheritance did you discover? Everyone inwardly grumbled. The truth was indeed so. At first, someone had discovered an inheritance in Xianxia Peak, but did not have enough strength to get it. Helplessly, the Gu master called for other Gu masters to explore together. But the result was, they lost several people instead. The Gu masters were no resigned to failure and searched all around for help, inviting Pan Ping and Zhu Zai one after another. The two, for their respective benefits, competed with each other, creating the situation to turn into a stalemate before finally Feng Yuan crashed in. Now, since Feng Yuan directly asked it, Pan Ping and Zhu Zai did not dare to hide it and could only explain this matter. Lord Wolf King, it is fortunate you are here. This inheritance opens every 7 days, and during the opening, it lets out a soaring high starlight and reveals a starlight door. This duration is not only extremely short, there are also insect groups that rush out of the starlight door, preventing us from entering. Pan Ping introduced with a slight smile. There is only a short time before the inheritance opens now. Lord Xianxia, since you graced us with your presence, I represent all the Gu masters here to request you to uphold justice. Zhu Zai said with sincerity on his face. The corners of Pan Ping's lips twitched as he glanced at Zhu Zai with extreme disdain. Zhu Zai's reputation of being a famous expert in the demonic path is laughable, he actually is going so far in his flattery. Pan Ping was filled with disdain towards Zhu Zai. Wolf King might be strong, but I, Pan Ping, will have a day when I can reach his level. Pan Ping was young, his heart still had arrogance, but he did not show it, instead lowering his head to show his respect towards Wolf King. He was a demonic path Gu master and naturally was extremely clear of his current situation and understood the logic of being able to bow and submit. Fang Yuan straightforwardly agreed, immediately becoming the main person in charge here. As time gradually passed, everyone was indeed able to see starlight gradually filling the summit. When the time arrived, the starlight majestically soared up, piercing through the sky. A small door then slowly opened in the dazzling starlight. Bzzz bzzz bzzz. Large numbers of insect groups rushed out like a tide. These insect groups were of all kinds of colors with many wild Gu mixed among them. Their stance was fierce but they only hovered near the starlight door and did not pounce upon the people. Clearly, this was a test. Fang Yuan carefully observed before snickering, this insect group test was not difficult. Even without him, with the combined strength of the rest of the Gu masters, they would be able to overcome this. However, Pan Ping and Zhu Zai's internal dispute caused the overall strength to be divided with other Gu masters supporting different sides, no one conceded which allowed Fang Yuan to take this opportunity. Fang Yuan glanced at Pan Ping and Zhu Zai, these two both had somewhat unsightly expressions right now. Fang Yuan did not care, instead he sent an order, these insect groups are often more difficult to deal with than beast groups. All of you, listen to my arrangement, and we will be able to reduce the losses and deal with this easily. Everyone promptly agreed. Under Fang Yuan's command, they attacked in segments, drawing away the insect group and exterminating them. After a dozen or so breaths of time, most of the insect groups had been drawn away and the originally tight defense line now had a huge gap. Pan Ping said in joy, Lord Wolf King is truly amazing. All of our eyes were obscured, exterminating the insect groups is not important, the main thing was to open a passageway. With this, we will have plenty of time. Zhu Zai also sighed, having Lord Wolf King to lead us is our fortune. But Fang Yuan's next words shocked them, you guys stay here to hold back the insect groups, don't make a mistake. I will make a trip inside. With that, he suddenly rushed to the starlight door with the wolf group. This. Lord Wolf King. Zhu Zai's expression paled, he had not expected Fang Yuan to act so selfishly in the open. Pan Ping's eyes also opened wide as his heart filled with anger at the injustice. Under everyone's gazes, Fang Yuan first sent an azure wolf to investigate the inside and seeing there were no dangers, he rode an azure wolf king and entered the door. Of course, he left behind a large number of azure wolves to form a defensive line around the entrance to protect his escape route. Didn't they say Wolf King was proud and aloof, how could he be so shameless? He is truly too overbearing, this inheritance was clearly discovered by us first, but now it was snatched by Xianxia. Xianxia has let down the name of the Grand Wolf King, he actually left us out here. The people present were all furious but they did not dare to express their anger. Lord Pan Ping, should we also charge in? A rank 3 Gu master rolled his eyes, then turned towards Pan Ping and urged him. Pan Ping snorted and sent this Gu master flying with a kick, shouting fiercely, "If you want to go in, feel free." "What, you want me to test the water?" "Lord, you misunderstood, how could I dare?" The rank 3 Gu master immediately retorted. "Get lost." Pan Ping angrily rebuked while clenching his fists tightly. He rigidly looked at the starlight door with sharp light flashing past his eyes. The gap that had been cleared was now jammed with azure wolves. There were 2 myriad wolf kings, dozens of thousand wolf kings, over 300 wolf kings, and even over 200 guarding the air. Pan Ping could not charge through this scale of wolves. His thoughts turned around and he then looked at Zhu Zai, speaking in a faint ridiculing tone, "This is the result of you wanting Wolf King to uphold justice?" Zhu Zai coldly glanced at Pan Ping, immediately seeing through Pan Ping's thoughts. He snorted inwardly with disdain, "This Pan Ping is still young and has been infected by hastiness gained from the recent fame. He actually wants to entice me to ally with him to break the Wolf Group's defense line, too naive. Is Wolf King so easy to deal with? Even if Wolf King only left behind one ordinary night wolf, I would not dare to make a move. This brat simply overestimates his own abilities." Pan Ping furiously snorted as he saw Zhu Zai not answering him, and could only swallow the words that he had been about to speak. Fong Yuan arrived before a courtyard after entering the starlight door. The style of the courtyard was peculiar. It was completely constructed out of blue metal and its shape was strange and abstract, not belonging to any style of the 5 regions. Fong Yuan pushed upon the gate and entered. The courtyard was covered in a layer of thin light cotton, and appeared mysterious, quiet and magnificent. At first, Fong Yuan moved cautiously, but after searching around once, he did not find any mechanisms for tests or traps. The courtyard had 6 rooms, and Fong Yuan explored all of them. So over 100 years ago, this was the residence of Northern Plains' great poet Du Minjun. Fong Yuan received the entire inheritance left behind by the courtyard master and learned this person's identity. Du Minjun was a rank 5 Gu master. He traveled alone and had never married in his whole life. He was called Vagrant Lone Star by people. He was the famous poet immortal in Northern Plains and his verses mostly portrayed the starry sky, his longing towards his hometown and his powerless struggle against fate. He was proud and noble, and separated himself from mortal affairs. He had been pursued by many Northern Plains women throughout his life and there were even men who pursued him, but they were all heartlessly rejected by him. Future generations evaluated and praised him. He was immersed in his own world. Although he was in Northern Plains, his mind was in the starry sky. He was not a Northern Plains man, he was a poet immortal who was denounced to the mortal world from the starry sky. So Du Minjun eventually chose to suicide at this place. Fong Yuan sighed. Du Minjun was not able to endure the melancholy in his heart in the end. He built his final residence in Xingjiu Peak and ended his life of his own accord. What he had left behind were countless poems to be read and admired by the later generations. Du Minjun had outstanding talents and his inheritance was also extremely valuable. N0 Vel B J N served as the original host for this chapter's release on N0V3LB1N. First of all was an emotion poetry Gu. Emotion poetry Gu was especially used to store emotions and along with painting idea Gu, was a wisdom path Gu. It was extremely rare and very expensive. Then, there were large numbers of star path Gu worms of all types. It basically had all the star path Gu of Northern Plains. Fong Yuan was amazed at this. It seems Du Minjun had a fortuitous encounter, otherwise how could he have so many and such complete star path Gu worms? He actually innovated an entire set of star Gu recipes. Fong Yuan flipped through the recipes and realized how shockingly talented Du Minjun was. He founded a set of new Gu, from rank 1 a bit of star Gu, to rank 2, brilliance of 2 stars Gu, rank 3, 3 stars in the sky Gu, rank 4, 4 stars cube Gu, to rank 5, 5 stars aligned Gu. This set of Gu worms was especially targeted Star Path Gu and could raise Star Path Gu's effects by a huge degree. It was equivalent to a non-mainstream amplify effect Gu. But this set of Gu worms had much higher success rate than amplify effect Gu, moreover their refinement materials were extremely common. This meant, if this set of Gu recipes was spread, it would definitely lead to a huge rise in popularity of Star Path Gu and would have some amount of influence towards all Gu master paths.